What's up? What's up? What's up? It's Monday. It's October 12th. And it's 8 o'clock. So you know what that means? It must be real talk. What's up, people? How you doing? I'm trying to get my pages up so I can share my pages. I'm doing a bad job right now. I don't know why I can't get this going. So anyway, I'll set off to the side. Hello, hello, hello. I'm Jimmy Mcgee. I'm the president, CEO of the Impact Movement. I'm representing tonight. It's called Ball State University. Got some folk from Ball State here today. So a couple of things, a couple of announcements. We got to get them out of the way. First thing, most important, start off, Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. That's right. It ain't that Columbus guy. I don't even know what y'all talking about. It's Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. They were here before that dude just happened to come across the United States of America. Secondly, and very, 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 very important, I voted today. Yeah, I got it. I did it. I went to the polls. I made my ancestors proud. I used the privilege of my citizenship. Now, for all of you watching tonight or on the recording, go to the Impact social media pages. You can go and see if you're registered to vote. Now, last week was the last day for people in Georgia, but there's still time for people to register and vote. We don't want you to be like Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal just announced last week, did a big old social media post. Hey, I just voted. He's 48 years old. 30 years has gone by since he had that privilege. No, that ain't cool. There we go. I still don't know how to do it yet. Anyway, so I want you to go out and vote. Finally, last announcement. On October 31st, we're going to have a town hall meeting. It's going to be dealing with a variety of subjects with a lot of guests. It's for our students. It's going to be, did you hear it? Oh, free. So we're going to post it on our social media. Please come and join us for that time. It's October 31st. We're going to fix it so those on the West Coast don't have to get up at 5 in the morning. We're going to do it in the afternoon so they can chill with their orange juice and coffee and come spend some time at Town Hall so we can care for you, love for you, pray for you, and hear from you. So please join us in that time. Well, now it's time to get on with tonight's evening show. So let me tell you what we have. My favorite subject, the Impact Movement. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. So let me introduce our guests, please. So starting it off, we got a lot of ladies. So should I let the brother come on first? No, we still got to be gentlemen, don't we? All right, here we go. So we're going to start it off with a student. Her name is Taylor Bell. She's a graduate of Ball State University. She's a graduate student at Ball State University, and she's here with us tonight to talk about her experience with the Impact Movement. How you doing, Taylor?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. All right, let's get somebody else over here. All right, now we're going to mess it up a little bit, and we got Adriana. We call her Dree from Watson. She is from Cleveland, but she went to LSU. She graduated from LSU, woohoo! And she's now serving students with the Impact Movement in Baton Rouge. What's say, Dree?
Hello, how are you?
Doing good. Great to have you here tonight. All right, next person, cannot wait, is Miss Octavia Miller. That's my homegirl. She's from Chicago. You see, she's dressed to the nine tonight in black, but she's from Ball State. I'm representing. She graduated from Ball State. She's now serving students at Ball State. Hung out for Taylor for a couple of years. Is that right, Taylor? Y'all been hanging out? Y'all don't hang out no more, right? Because of this pandemic thing. Okay, right. But anyway, it's great to have you, Octavia. How you doing, sis?
I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
She's from the south side of Chicago. Let's get it straight.
I'm not from the south side of Chicago.
Oh, what side are you from?
The west side of Chicago.
Oh, all right. Now, excuse all that enthusiasm. Pray for her right now, because she's from the west side of Chicago. That's not. Oh.
Don't do that.
Okay. Now, last guess. I can't wait. Now, some people call him a bishop. Some call him reverend. Some call him uncle. I just call him Curtis Campbell. He's from Dallas. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. He's a Cowboys fan. Pray for him, but he's a UT grad. And they just lost a tight one this past Saturday. But Curtis Campbell is responsible for serving students at Impact in the state of Texas. He's been around for 5 years. He's married to a lovely bride. He calls her one thing. I call her Denise because I don't have the right to call her that.
I call her honey.
Octavia Denise. That's right. He calls her honey. How y'all doing?
Doing good, doing good. And glad to be on here.
I'm glad to see all y'all. Y'all looking beautiful on this Monday evening. So tonight's topic is the impact movement. But you know, we're dealing with some serious issues in the world today. I want my enthusiasm to come down just a taint. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic where we have over 210,000 people dying. We do not want to take that for granted. For all the people who have been hurt because of a lost loved one or people who are ill today. We have tons of racial strife that is happening throughout the country. I keep hearing there's riots. I don't hear about the riots, but I know people are not happy. We got economic trouble here, as well as we got students that are at school but attending virtually. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So as we start off tonight, can you just talk about your introduction to the impact movement? Taylor, I brought you on first, so why don't you start? Tell us how you got involved with the impact movement.
So I got involved with the impact movement probably about my freshman year of college. So it was back in like 2016. I think one of the leaders lived in the same, like on the same floor as me, and she invited me. And I think from there, Octavia kind of took it away, and she, kind of held my hand, and we started discipleship. And so I have been like a little on and off since then. But then I got, back into it my junior and my senior year. So, and now I'm a volunteer impact coach.
Excellent. So you're helping to serve the campus that you were once a student at. Let me ask you this. How many students were involved in 2016?
I think it was a good amount.
It was a good amount? All right. So I don't know what good amount is. Is that like 10, 15, 20, 30?
It was a blur. It was 4 years ago. I can't remember. 4 years ago.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I can see it's such a long time. We got to give you some vitamins so you can encourage that memory over there. Dree, how'd you get involved at LSU with Impact?
So I actually got introduced to Impact my freshman year. So it was actually a mutual friend, Taylor Scott. We were in the same biology class together, and I was not doing well in my biology class. So we ended up doing like a little study session, and I was just explaining to her like how I couldn't find a group of people that were Christians within a Black community on LSU's campus. And we were kind of just talking back and forth, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, you should totally check out the Impact movement." And at that point, I was already ready to like connect with anybody. At that point, I was ready to leave Louisiana, go back home, because I couldn't find like my home or like my niche in such a big school. So I was just like, yeah, LSU was not worth it. And so she was like, no, I definitely think you should come. I think it will change your perspective. I was like, okay, like I'm down. And it was ironic because during that meeting, was the first opportunity. It was just like an open discussion. It was like midterms week. They didn't really have a lesson, and everybody was just kind of pouring out how they was feeling about midterms and everything. And I was just like, oh yes, these are my people. This is my kind. This is what I was expecting, what I needed. And so that's kind of how I got connected.
And if I remember right, Taylor Scott, was she the president 2 years ago?
She was the president 2 years ago, and then the student body vice president of LSU.
That's right. And then Taylor Pierre came on the president last year. Is that correct? All right. I'm still tracking with you. Octavia Miller, tell us, how'd you get involved with Impact?
I got involved with Impact my freshman year, late in the first semester. I was going to church, and one of the girls on the church bus that picked us up, she was like, you should come to this Bible study. It's Black people and it's Bible study. And I was like, thank you. Yes. I ended up going that following Wednesday for the first time, and it was amazing. Like, I just instantly was like, man, this is my home. They were sharing the gospel. It was kind of an open discussion. and just the feel of the room and the people were there, like we instantly felt connected, and I was captivated ever since, and I'm still doing it.
Excellent. And how many people were at Impact during those days when you were back then?
So I think I've thought about this a lot enough to speak specifically, and I believe it was 12 people there, my first Impact meeting.
Right. And not in that meeting, but like in the whole chapter. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was kind of shaky, but that year we kind of fluctuated between like 12 and 20-ish kind of people, but it was small, really small. Our leaders were actually ready to kind of throw in the towel. And in those weeks, so many people, random people just showed up. And so they just kept going, and they were amazed by the Lord's faithfulness.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. That's good stories. Curtis, tell us now. I don't know about you. I didn't have it when I was a student. So tell me, how did you hear about the Impact movement?
No, we didn't have that on my campus. We would love to have it. We had a gospel choir, and then we had a Christian fraternity and sorority. That was about it. So, yeah, so actually, I was on staff with the church here in San Antonio, and I just felt the Lord needed me to move off staff. Through a series of circumstances, God got my attention. We had a young man that ended up moving in with us, and as we were just spending time together and praying, we actually, it began with the three of us, and it began to grow. We had about 15, 20 people that would come to the house every week just to pray. And in the midst of that, God said, "This is the work that I want you to be involved with." I was like, "Okay, so let me know what you want me to do." And he said, "I want you to quit your job at the church." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. Tell what you want me to do." He said, "Just quit and trust me." I was like, I don't know about that one. Again, I'm mid-career. I had 2 houses, 2 car notes, kids in Christian school. I'm like, we don't have to talk about that. But eventually, it took me about 7 months, we'll talk. But eventually, I surrendered to the Lord. And I said, "God, I'll follow you wherever you lead. They can have the house. They can have the cars. I want you." And about 3 months later, when my resignation became official, within 6 days, a friend of mine, a mutual friend, called and said, "Curtis, I want you to meet somebody." And we went to breakfast, and he said, "I just want you to share with him your story." And I shared with him my story. He said, "Well, we have been trying to start the Impact movement at the UTSA, and it has not gained the traction that we wanted. We believe that God is calling you to be a part of that work. Would you be willing to come?" And so I said, "Okay." And so I said, "Well, I don't have a job, and God has called me to work with young people, so perhaps this is it." And we started at UTSA. The movement began there, and that's where we began serving. The movement began to grow. And and so that's how I got involved.
Wow. Now that's a good story for anybody listening or see this recording. You don't have to join the Impact movement when you're a freshman. You can come as a member of a church and come help and hang out with the students. You're more than welcome. Now, let me do a little history for everybody who don't know. First of all, let me just say this. The Impact Movement Incorporated was started in 2002. The actual first conference was 1991, but in 2002, we became a separate 501c3, moving from a department under Campus Crusade to be our own 501c3. So we exist as a standalone organization. Just to be clear, I'm not the founder. The founder he's a little bit taller than me, he's smarter than me too. So his name is Charles Gilmer, but there were a whole bunch of people, and I'm gonna just throw some love to a couple of people. I'm thinking of Jackie Bland, Rose Thompson, James White, Dennis Talbert, Tom Fritz, the founder of the conference, a whole bunch of people who were part of starting the Impact movement. So when I joined when Curtis did 5.5 years ago. So do me a favor. I'm doing quizzes tonight, see if you guys really know the Impact movement. Can anybody share what is the mission statement for the Impact movement with us? Somebody volunteer. Make me look good. Make us look good.
You want the original one or the one?
Oh, no. Well, I tell you what. Now, I don't know you said the OG. No, we want the one we got right now. That's the one I want to hear from. Oh, you got it, Octavia, or somebody else?
Oh, I got it. The Impact movement equips Black students to become disciples of Christ.
That integrate their faith into every aspect of their life.
Exactly. There you go. She got that right because we added that last part, if you remember, Curtis, maybe about 6-7 months afterwards. But that's it. The impact movement exists to make disciples of Jesus Christ, of Black students in every aspect of life. Now, it's very important for everyone to understand. The impact movement is not the very first campus ministry that was solely dedicated to reaching Black students. Actually, we're not the second, but right now, currently, we're the only national one in the world, in the country. Here we go. Our mission to equip Black students to become disciples of Jesus Christ that integrate their faith into every aspect of life. Now, we also want to say this too. There are a variety of other parachurch ministries in the country today. BCM, Black Campus Ministry of IV. We know Crew. We know Campus Outreach, Coalition for Christian Outreach, the NABs. There are a variety of people, Chi Alpha, Reformed University Fellowships. But we're the only one that targets Black students as our primary mission. Although in places like where you guys are, there are PWIs. So have we had non-Black students at any of your chapter meetings? Have you? Octavia, Taylor, see? So we're welcoming to everybody. Come one, come all, but this is the space. So let me just talk about one of the things. Let's flip the script, because the most exciting thing I heard about back in the day when I was working with another campus ministry, they used to talk about the national conference. That was the joint that really sparked the notion that we should have a campus ministry. Can you guys give me one national, if you've been to the national conference, give me one national conference memory that stands out in your mind. Go ahead, Dree, you can start. And then we're going to circle back to Taylor. Taylor, have you been to the conference? All right, good. Dree, you've been too, right?
Yeah.
Octavia, I think you've been there too, right? Go ahead, Dree.
So 2018, that was the last conference. And by far, the one that will always stick out to me is Principal Charity Haygood. By far, my absolute favorite. I got a chance to go up to her after she spoke and have a conversation with her. And I started to bawl. Like, it was a whole emotional moment. Just because I value education and I love when educators are passionate about their work, not just about the lesson plans and things like that, but students themselves. And so what she stood for, I remember so many of my teachers in middle school and high school and even elementary school who were just like her. And I was like, it's because of educators like you that I'm even able to be in college right now. So by far my favorite.
All right, showing some love for Charity Haygood. Okay, Octavia, give me a memory.
My first Impact conference was, I believe, 2016. Yeah. And Dr. Margaret Weaver, her talk, I literally go back and read the notes in my journal from the night of her talk. Just when I am like, man, Lord, I feel like I'm in a spot. I just go read it and remember some of the things that she said. And yeah, it was just so powerful. And I was literally just blown away. That was the first time I heard her speak. And I just appreciated her word and her voice so much that I was really grateful when we were able to bring her this past spring for our outreach to speak to our students in our campus, because she's incredible. And she's a licensed psychologist, she's a doctor, and that was my major at the time. That's why I'm hoping. I'm not trying to be a doctor, but I'm hoping to be a licensed mental health therapist. And so I just felt like, man, it literally just, her words just washed over me. It was the Lord, but it was good.
Yeah, and you remember that phrase, the king
Has
another move. Ooh, shut up. All right, now we ain't gonna sing and dance and run around, nothing like that. Okay. Curtis, give me a memory. And then we're gonna finish up with Taylor. Go ahead.
Wow. So I have several. I remember my pastor, Pastor Copeland, Bishop and Pastor Copeland. Pastor Copeland spoke in 2018. But actually, the one that probably had the most profound impact on me was my first one in 2012 in Louisiana. 2000, yeah, I think it was 12, 13, 14, anyway, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But I think it was 12. But I walked in, this is my first Impact conference, so it was 2012. I walked in the doors and there were hundreds upon hundreds of Black college students with their hands up in worship. I had never seen that before, and I just began to weep as I saw all of these young students of color that were worshiping God for real. I was like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be.
Taylor, come on, bring it home for me. What's your memory, Taylor?
So Dree actually took mine, but I'll mention another one from the 2018 conference. It was Dr. Claudette Copeland. When she spoke about, she told the story of Tamar in the Bible, and then she was talking about just like healing from childhood trauma and childhood abuse, and just the amount of students that came up to the front to receive prayer. I just really appreciated like the realness in that moment, and like that God met those students where they were at, and something that they didn't feel like they could share with anyone,
Wow.
So yeah, that was my
what people
moment.
fail to realize, we dream of that in this organization. Just seeing not just ballrooms, but our students deployed to be a Charity Haygood, to be a Claudette Copeland, to be a Margaret Weaver. The aspiration. In fact, if I can share this scripture with you guys that heavy on my heart. It's in Romans chapter 9, verses 1-3. And they're about to put up on the board. And I think this is truly my mission for why I'm a part of this organization. This is Paul writing, but I feel like it's my story too. He says, I'm speaking the truth in Christ. I'm not lying. My conscience bears me witness in the Holy Spirit that I have great sorrow and unceasing anguish in my heart. For I could wish that I myself were accursed and cut off from Christ, cut off from Jesus, for the sake of my brothers, my kinsmen, according to the flesh. This is the reason why we do this ministry. There's tons of Black students that need to not only hear and meet Jesus, but to see that Jesus cares about them in their Black bodies, and that he feels at home in their Black bodies, and he loves every aspect of their existence. Now, it's true that he also loves whatever body Jesus is reciting. It could be yellow. It's Indigenous Day, so it could be red. It could be Asian. It can be Latino. It can be brown. It can be white. But in this case, in terms of Black students who, at times, as we're going to try to get and unpack some of these issues, the fact is the idea that Jesus can be with us. And the memory I'll share, I won't share with you about the conference, but I can tell you why I feel like we need this organization, and that's where I want us to go next. I can still remember being at Marquette University my freshman year. We didn't have cell phones, and it was Sunday, so that was the night I would call my parents home, collect. People don't do that no more. And I remember pulling the phone into the closet while my roommates were out there, and I closed the door to call them, and I was crying because I had no idea where I was going to end up in this space. I was lonely. I wasn't like a lot of folk that knew what they wanted to study in college. And I knew I was at the cusp of adulthood. And inside, I got to tell you, I didn't feel like I was ready. I wasn't ready to be adulting. I guess I wanted to go back and be a junior or sophomore in high school again. And then out of that experience, I recommitted my life to the Lord, and I just shot up, both academics and my relationships. And then I began to see during those times as a student at Marquette University that these people around me are like wet cement. They're still trying to be shaped and figured out what their lives would be. And that's when God began to speak to me and saying, Jimmy, I want you to do campus ministry and hang out with students. And I've been hanging out with them since I graduated. I ain't telling you how long I graduate because I need Octavia. She's from the West Side. I don't trust those people. They make fun of me. So let's talk about real stories now. So we talked a little bit about how we got involved. We talked about the conference. Let's talk about a meaningful experience that's short term in your life now on campus. So I'm gonna start with you this time, Octavia. Talk about since we got a pandemic, we got to reach back a little bit to 2018, 2019, because we're all grieving that we can't be with people in real life. But give me an affirmation from being a former student to now a staff that affirmed the value of why we need a Black campus ministry at Ball State University.
I think the reason I'm on staff affirms why we need it. So Impact is a student-led ministry, and we have coaches and volunteers. But when I was a student, we didn't have staff leading us. We had students leading, and our student leaders were trained by crew staff, and our crew staff are white, and they discipled us, they imparted into us, and they trained us up. And I remember like praying in my junior year, like, Lord, can you please provide a Black staff person who will commit to serving Black students on this campus? Not because I felt like my leaders were lacking, but I knew the importance of seeing somebody that looked like me impart their wisdom into me. People that had been where I am and are where I'm trying to go, be able to be a part of shaping me and molding me. And so like that prayer, and after that prayer, I just began to see the importance of having us in these roles, not just seeing us as a people group to be reached, but a group of people that are worth being trained up and sent out to do this very job and this very role. And so then becoming a student leader, just like in like the connection that we had, the ability that we had to just immediately relate and care for our students in a way that they didn't have to tell us, but we just knew, affirm that. And even now as a coach, it's like when things happen, I know how to reach into my students. Like I know how to care for them because I'm sitting with them. I'm with it. Like I'm in it with them. And so they don't have to say like, this is my experience as a Black person. I already know. They aren't forced to work to teach those who are in those space, but the people that are leading and training them are men and women that know them, that know how to care, that knows how to empower them and to uplift them, and to even challenge them because we know. So that's just one way.
Wow, it sounds like you had an Isaiah 6 moment when you were saying, Lord, send somebody here. And the Lord said, oh, I am going to send somebody here. I'm going to send you.
He did. I was not prepared for that, but I'm obedient. Sometimes.
That's a good thing because we like obedient people. We'd take Isaiah 6 over Jonah any day in the week and twice on Sunday.
Oh, sometimes
so praise God.
Jonah. So you know.
Sometimes you Jonah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but we don't want to be pale in that water. No. Curtis, give me a good story of recent in Texas or LA or someplace where you work where you can just think about the joy of working with Black students.
Yeah, I think about this one story that comes to my mind back when I was actually on campus full time. And I remember there was a young lady so it was toward the end of the semester, and we were just doing a kickback. And so there was an apartment complex right next to the campus. So we had went out there, and there was probably maybe 15, 20 of us. And so we were out there playing basketball, barbecuing, playing games, just out there chilling. Well, and we had music playing. So what happened was, we're out there, all of a sudden, people saw us, people just kind of started walking up. They were like, okay, all these Black folks up here hanging out, what y'all doing? So all of a sudden, our little group just started growing, right? So, we were just hanging out, having fun, just building a relationship. And at the conclusion, it was dead week right before exams. So it was like, hey guys, so let's get a chance to pray for finals, before we head out. And so we just kind of circled up and we began to pray. But after we prayed, this one young lady came up and said, hey, can we talk? And I was like, okay. So me, one of the other young ladies who went and talked with us, she said, she was from Houston. And she said, my mom didn't really force me to go to church growing up. And so I didn't, we didn't really do a lot of that. And she said, but I'm here. And just being here, I want to know more about this God thing.
Wow.
And less than a week later, that young lady gave her life to Jesus.
Wow.
But what reached her wasn't the Bible study. It wasn't the preaching. It was her being able to sit and be in community with people who could love on her, that she could connect with, who embodied the gospel, not just preach the gospel. And it made a difference in her life.
Shut up. That's why we're here. We're here so they can see people who look like us and know that we can be accessible to them, and to know that, Jesus hangs out with Black folk hanging out, right? And even though Karen may or may not show up, it don't really matter. The Lord can still hang out with us, right? You hear me?
And and what hits me with that is, and we used to talk about this back in 2017, 18, 3 million students of African descent in college but less than 1% are involved with any other major campus ministries. There are students, like you were saying, not only that need to be reached, but need to be empowered to reach others. But how can they hear unless we're going, And so again, she was just a reminder of that we've got to go. So.
Shut up. Now you quoting Romans in there. How can they hear unless someone go? All right, we won't do that. That's Romans chapter 10. All right, Taylor, talk to me a little bit, sis. Give me a story of, since I don't know if it's a student, because you're volunteering in like a impact, a pandemic. But if you got a story, let me know one, please.
Okay, so I need the question again. What's the story about? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's a story about something you doing with impact locally at Ball State. It could be from your student year, from your senior year too.
Okay.
Octavia, you texting her a couple of stories. I know. I see your hands down there. You want to think about it a little bit more, Taylor? You want me to jump to Dree? All right, Dree, give me a story, Dree. Talk to me, sis.
Okay. So this was my freshman year. Like I had mentioned before, I was still very going to PWI and being a political science English major. I'm not seeing Black and brown students in my classes. I'm me and one other person. So pretty much every single day, it was just me by myself. And then coming from a whole other state, I had no family in Louisiana. I felt very isolated and very by myself. So I like you, Mr. Jimmy, I called my mom and I told her, like, this is the wrong school. I'm transferring tomorrow. We can cancel it. I'm really on my way to class, bawling myself. And I was just like, this is not it. Like, this was not the college experience that they told me on Disney Channel or that they just made this thing to be. So I was just like, no, I need to go back to where I know people. And it was during one of my individual discipleships with Brianne Gilbert, or Bri as we call her. And she really took the time to get to know me. She asked me questions about who I was, what I was missing, how she could come alongside me and walk this walk with me, what kind of questions I had about my faith. Did I have questions at all? What kind of doubts did I experience throughout my faith in Christ? Where did my beginnings start with Christ? Kind of all the different questions that nobody stops to ask you, but always assumes. She took the time to ask me those questions. And it was during that time of being discipled by her that not only did I feel seen, but I felt valued, I felt heard, I felt loved and appreciated. Things that I was not experiencing in my everyday walking around LSU's campus. And so to know that I could just pick up the phone and text Bree or call her like, hey, I did not have a day today and I just need somebody to listen. And she was literally there to listen to me. Forever changed my experience of college. Part of the reason why I ended up staying and flourishing so much at LSU was because I had that support system there. So definitely.
That's a good story. Let me come back to you, Taylor. You got something for me, sweetie?
Okay, I think I have something.
All right.
So I think I feel like for a lot of my life, I always felt like a black sheep. Like I never really had that group that I could call my own, or just like that feeling of like belonging somewhere. And so when I got to college, I just knew that that's all I wanted. I just wanted that family feeling, like this is where I belong. And I just felt like for a while I couldn't find that for myself. But I just remember one night, I think it was my senior year, after we had our impact body meeting, a lot of people stayed after and we were just talking and laughing and having a good time. And then we were playing like different gospel songs. And then we started playing Michael Jackson. Like everybody was just like dancing and like vibing and having a good time. And then the workers of like the building, they came and like kicked us out because we were there too long. But I just know that like in that moment, I felt it. Like I felt that I belong here. Like I finally felt that for myself. Like this is my family. I'm finally in. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is where I've been trying to get to. So I think that was my moment.
You know, I want to turn the corner a little bit because I think that's it. So we probably need to begin to paint a picture of the impact movement too. And before we begin to paint this picture, if people have questions, and if you're on, like, I see a lot of comments on my watch party, what I would tell you to do, if you're looking, please go to the Impact Movement Facebook page or a YouTube page for Facebook. YouTube channel for Impact, and write a question there. And if you have a question, the people behind the scenes who are always here doing a fabulous job, Kayla Jones and Tracy Warren, they're going to show us these questions, and we're going to try to answer them. So please do that. So we talk about this mission of the Impact Movement to talk about every aspect of life. And I want people to paint this picture that we want to give people experience to know Jesus, period, hands down. But we also want them to know that it's attached to every aspect of their humanity. And I'm going to borrow a story that Curtis gave me and then was later published in an article that I received last week. Curtis, I don't know if you knew this, but Curtis was telling me a story of Stephen F. Austin. I think it was 2 weeks ago. A young Black cheerleader who was a freshman. So she had to be in between 18, 19 years of age. Someone allegedly heard that she was threatening to kill somebody with a pair of scissors. So the young lady goes to bed one time, September 14th, and at 3 a.m. in the morning, the campus cops barge into her dorm room with the guns out, pointing at this young lady who allegedly was trying to threaten somebody's life with a pair of scissors. Now, later on, they discover that they were mistaken. But what do you think happened to this person's life? You think they can roll back time and say, oops, I'm sorry. The only thing that's different between that and Breonna Taylor is that they did not discharge their weapons. So the reality is for us, what I want to talk about, or I want you to talk about with us, when we talk about every aspect of their life, give us an example of how we're concerned about every aspect of a person's life. And remember now, for our audience, the only reason why we would ever meet a Black college student is because they applied and got accepted at the institution. There's no reason. We don't just see random folk on the street and say, oh, are you a college student? You should be a part of the Impact Movement. We just don't do that. We actually show up on a campus. And if a Black student has been accepted and is residing or commuting, but they're coming to that campus, we have an opportunity to meet them because they got accepted at that institution. So, Curtis, give another example of the well-roundedness or how we want to meet every aspect of a student's life, if you can, please.
Sure. So I'm thinking on a lot of different levels, a couple of examples. So we talk often about the 3 Ps, and so that the Impact Movement is 3 times the para. So we're not just a para-church organization, but we're also para-community and para-school. And so 2 quick examples, I think from a para-school standpoint, I remember a young lady at Texas State. She was there from Maryland, and her freshman semester, similar, I think, to somebody else's story I was saying earlier, she was struggling with the classes. She came from a predominantly Black environment. She was there on this campus, predominantly white, going through all the different microaggressions, et cetera. And she was like, I don't know that I want to stay here. And toward the end of that fall semester, she ran into somebody from Impact. She ended up staying. The next semester, she came back, and she eventually became a leader in Impact, and she persevered through graduation. And one of the things that they show us is when students get involved and get committed to an organization, that helps them to persist to graduation. So we saw a direct impact on her graduating from Texas State because of her involvement with Impact. But I'll go a step further in terms of para-community. I remember another young lady at Rice, and she was there pursuing, she was pre-med, and she's actually in medical school now. She's in her 3rd year. But her desire is to open a community clinic in a low-income neighborhood in Houston, because she says, this is what God would have me to do to impact the community. And then the last example is, I think it was 2 years ago, Hurricane Harvey hit, and Houston and Beaumont. And Jim, we talked. So Beaumont was without water. Many of y'all may remember that story. And there was an NBA player that said they were willing to provide the water, but they didn't know how to get it in. And so we were able to build some partnerships. And so students came from all over to meet in Beaumont to help deliver water to stations around that city so that people who were without water could have it. And the point is, these students were not just thinking about themselves and how their degree can get them ahead, but they were thinking about how does God want me to impact the community that's around me? Not even just in my city, but anywhere that I see it. How does God want to use me to be an embodiment of the gospel, not just in word, but in deed? So that's how we see it impacting more than just quote unquote their spiritual lives.
Wow. Wow. Dree, I see you over there bopping your head, sis. Why are you bopping your head? You got a story like that where we're trying to really talk about every aspect of life? Go ahead.
Yeah, what Mr. Craze was saying was exactly what I experienced on LSU's campus. Definitely the community part. So when I first got connected to I was still trying to figure out like study groups, finding out like how to go and take tests, where I need to take them. I wanted an on-campus job, other communities or organizations outside of the impact movement that I could get plugged into. And it was like impact was a one-stop shop for that, because we had so many different Black students that were in engineering, in mass comm, in philosophy, who were all a part of these different organizations all throughout LSU's campus, but their home base was impact. So if I needed an on-campus job, hey, they hiring at where you at? Okay, let me go ahead and apply there. Oh, you got this study, let me go ahead and study with you. And so it becomes this network of students helping students so that we all can succeed, because we're all in this bubble together. So if I'm succeeding, I want you to succeed too.
See, that's the part. Now, I want our audience to hear this. See, in the impact movement, we don't want our students just to be a part of impact. We would love impact to be their home base so that they can influence other aspects of the campus, whether it's clubs, Greek life, whatever, Black student associations, I think. That's when we think about every aspect, because we feel strongly in the impact movement, if we can do it on the campus, then I have hope that they'll do it when they graduate in their neighborhood, in their occupations, in their just caring about people wherever they go after the time that they practice it at their university with the impact movement. Taylor, I'm gonna come to you, and then I'm gonna end up with Miss Miller over here. Taylor, you got any ideas of how the impact movement talks about other aspects of life, not just telling people about Jesus, but how Jesus is concerned about every aspect of their lives?
I think I've noticed a few actually, like in my 4 years, like in some Bible studies, like we talked about relationships. And that could be like friendships, that could be romantic relationships. We've talked about sex. We've talked about like our husband and, our spouse, like getting ready for, preparing yourself, I guess, for, that time. We've talked about like our past and like healing from our trauma and the things that have happened to us. So I feel like impact does talk about what's going on in the present, but it also touched on our past and our future in different ways.
That's very important. I think you're spot on. And we're doing a lot of work with trauma to realize that the student that shows up on our campus has a past that's showing up with them, and they need to sort that thing out while they're in school. And sometimes it's not because the classes are so hard, but the past that came with them is so difficult for them to work their way through. Yeah, that's true. Octavia, you got a story?
I'm thinking of a lot. One of my girls, she's a single mom, and her daughter, we call her a little impact baby. And she was connected to our movement and then kind of off a little bit, but now she's not only like a part of our movement, but she actually serves in our movement. And I've had the opportunity to disciple her and just to like care well for her. And it feels weird putting myself on blast, but like just being able to step in moments where things have gotten hard, or where she just needed somebody to watch her daughter, and be able to love not just her in our discipleship time and when she comes to an impact meeting, but to be a part of her whole life, and all that it entails. I often think like, and I never thought in my mind, I'm like, this is normal. This is what we should do. And one of the impact leaders who graduated before, she came back and spoke, and she was just asking me all these questions, like, you do this, you do this. And I was like, yeah, like that's normal. And she's like, that's not normal. Like, people don't go outside of their way to care for somebody's like everything. And I never thought about it, but I just felt like, oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional. But when I look at my students, my hope is not just for them to like know Jesus, but I want them to understand what it means to be loved by him and what it means to be a part of a community. Like, we are called not just to do good, but to like plan to do good for those around us, like to make it our business to care well for our brothers and sisters. And so being able to take that extra step doesn't feel like a burden, but it is the way that we show care. It's like, I don't just care about you and, you know, how well you can read your Bible. I do care deeply about that. But if you are not understanding what it looks like to be loved by God, to know what it means to be in community with him, it won't ever go anywhere. It'll just be something you do, but it won't be a part of your lived experience, how you live that thing out. And so I want them to live it out. And so I don't think about it, but I try my best to include all parts of who they are in how I serve them, how I care for them. And I love that she's a part of our movement and that she feels supported, and not just supported, but confident enough to share how God has moved through her in this movement as a leader now.
See, I want our audience to hear that's what we're about. And let me finish the SFA story. When Curtis shared that story with me, it wasn't just telling me what happened at SFA, and that was very important. What he later told me is that the coach at SFA, the coach of the impact movement, was seeking that cheerleader out to care for her and to see how she could be comforted, and to be a person who can bring some healing ointment on a very bad situation. That's what we really want you to hear tonight of who we are and what we imagine can happen. It's the idea that the impact movement introduce people to Jesus, but we also demonstrate what Jesus does when he occupies in our body by reaching out and loving and seeing the people who feel they're unseen, touching the people who never get touched, seeing the actions that will not necessarily draw attention. So I'm a brag on Ball State just a little bit, just for the sake, little bit. So a few years ago, when I first came on board, and I forgot his name, Octavia. What was the brother's name? He's a nurse now.
Bryce.
Bryce
Yes.
sent me this email. And it was right in the middle of Colin Kaepernick when he was at that time employed with the San Francisco 49ers. And he said, Jimmy, at Ball State, we want to take a risk. And we want to know, and this is so odd because I rarely have, my kids don't even ask me permission half the time. But anyway, they said, I want to know, is it okay at the next home game at Ball State that the impact movement take a knee in solidarity that we're concerned about injustice in our society? And then, of course, in my brain, I was like, oh, yeah, you can go do that right now. But I had to touch base because I'm responsible. And I touched base and I got, yeah, they could do that. So they did. And I remember the story very vividly in my mind. A week or so later, a couple of outcomes happened. First, that some of the crew students had issues with the impact students for taking a knee at the game. So that became to a very interesting conversation. But the second thing that happened, that chapter of 11, 14, 13 people, how big is the chapter right now, Octavia?
That's hard to say because of COVID. But last year we ended with about 70 to 100 students.
Do you see what I'm saying? And Jalen Jones, who we had 2 weeks ago, was a part of that. He was the president of the Black Student Association. And what happened there was that Black students who may not naturally be drawn to the impact movement or to a Bible study saw that the impact student was concerned about the well-being of other Black people in the world. And that drew people to them. And so that's what we're hoping here at the impact movement. Now, I think, let's see, I've got 3 people here who've been on South Africa too, right? So we got some missions we can bring up here. Taylor, I don't think, have you been overseas, Taylor, or you've been traveling? Now, don't worry, they don't let me go to South Africa either.
I was supposed to go this summer before the whole COVID thing happened.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that disease happened. I'm so sorry. So we're going to talk a little bit, but I want to remind our audience and check in. Do we have any questions? And if you do, ask these people a question. They're excited to talk more and answer your questions. So go to the Impact Movement on Facebook page, the Impact Movement on Facebook, or go to the YouTube channel for the Impact channel on YouTube. Ask a question. We'll be glad to answer it. But what people fail to realize that we also try to mobilize students, and we want students to go and see the world. I mean, last year we've had trips to Detroit. We were planning a trip to Pittsburgh. We had another trip to South Africa. We've had people to Ghana. The idea is that we want people to know that we're not just limited to the campus space. We want our students to see the whole world. And I think, Dree, you went to South Africa, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually went twice. So both trips, I got a chance to go.
Really? So wait a minute. Let me get it straight. You went 16, 17 or 17, 18?
I went 17, 18.
17, 18. So that means you were there with Octavia on one of those experiences. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you were with Curtis.
And then my first one was
with Curtis. All right, Dree. So give us a South Africa story real quick.
Okay. South Africa. Honestly, okay, so it'll be my first one. It was during, I want to say dinner. We probably just finished dinner. And like a couple of students, we were just playing music, kind of just like relaxing, debriefing from the day. We had just went on one of the campuses at that point. And literally everybody had just started singing. It was very just spontaneous. And then all of a sudden, the spirit just broke out. People crying in one corner, singing some more. Grace was there, and then she started leading us in worship. Then somebody popped out with prayer. Then another person popped out with prayer. It took from what was like a 10-minute moment, ended up to being like an hour and a half of us literally just sitting there in worship, just over the day. And what we got to experience on campus was by far the most freeing experience I've ever had the opportunity to be in. Both trips, both times I went to South Africa, I got to see God in a completely different way that I probably would not have ever got the opportunity to experience had I not went to South Africa.
Now, see, that's an exceptional story. And I need to let our audience know a couple of things that might have missed everybody. But February of 1990, don't ask me how old I was, Octavia, and I don't want to know how old you were either. But February 1990, I remember being late to church because that was the day, a day in February 1990 was when Nelson Mandela was set free, and he was on the ferry coming from Robben Island to the mainland. And later in June of 1990, I had a chance to go hear him speak here in Atlanta. Nelson Mandela. He was, I mean, it was more than what you can imagine. It's like a Dr. King, Malcolm X moment when you had someone with so much breath and life speak about after being in jail since 1960 or 61, being set free. And then 4 years later, become the first president of this new South Africa. Curtis, you went in 2000. I'm going to skip right over Octavia and just go to you, brother. Talk to me a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Loved having Dree in that team. We had a great team. My wife actually was the trip leader. I was her assistant, and it was a wonderful experience. I remember we were a couple of things stick out. One, I remember we were on the campus of Sewanee University, and we were there helping. We were working with South Africa Campus Crusade, and we were trying to launch a campus ministry there. And so we were out there just having conversations, connecting with students, starting spiritual conversations, how are the doors open? And there was this one young man I was able to have a conversation with, and we were just talking, and then we started talking about things, and things led to a spiritual conversation. And the more we were sharing, he says to me, we South Africans look up to you, Black Americans. I mean, he just, in the middle of the conversation, just stopped. I said, really, why? He says, because you understand our struggle. And when you think about apartheid and the civil rights movement, you can see, and it was just, we know there is a desire to see more people of color serving as missionaries going overseas. And so just when we're there, they were like, y'all are really here as missionaries. Yes, we're here. We're here to embody, to bring the love of Jesus here. And I was able to have more conversations with them, but it's just that just our presence there was a witness and gave us opportunity to share with those who may not have heard otherwise.
Wow. See, that's comforting. I've been to South Africa too, not with Impact, but I remember hearing stories just like that. Octavia, I'm gonna give you a shot. Give me a story.
Oh man, South Africa changed my life. It changed my life. But I think of Maklaseri Mansana, the school that we were in for a week, and the principal of the school. So we were only with the classes that were connected to the Tateni Care Center. But the principal of the school was so excited to have us there, to have us Black Americans there, that he, on I think our second to last day, he had all I believe the third grade classes, it might have been fifth grade, but all the classes, and I think there was 5 different classrooms, all of them come out so that we could talk with them and share the gospel with them. Because he said, like, this is so important. Like, they needed to see us. And I'm like, I needed to see them. Like, I needed to be with them. But just to know that our influence on those students at 5th grade or 3rd grade would potentially influence their lives and impact them in such monumental ways, because they were used to having missionaries. They said they had multiple groups kind of come in through there throughout the year, and not all of them looked like us. Not all of us looked like those students. And so when we came in, it was like, this is amazing to be able to have, I think it was 5 of us, 5 Black students come and share with our students the gospel, and they can look up to you guys and you can impact them. And I will never forget that moment. I will never forget watching even the students that were with us that felt hesitant or scared, be bold and share the gospel in such, encouraging it in empowering ways. So, yeah.
So we've been to South Africa. We've talked about some of the experiences of our past, but let's talk about now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. These are difficult days for all of us in this country. I'd imagine it's pretty hard to do ministry to Black students too, whether for a variety of reasons. So this time, and Taylor, I'm gonna come back to you since I wanted to hear from you again. But everyone, think about this story. Think about when you think about serving Black students right now at this precise moment, under the conditions that we're dealing with, and not just the pandemic, but we're talking about Breonna Taylor and all the things that we're dealing with now. What are some of the challenges that you feel like you're facing right now to serve today's students? And Taylor, I'm gonna start with you, and then I'm gonna pick a couple more. And again, audience, if you got if you got a question for us, it's almost 9:00. Please visit us at Facebook, visit us at YouTube. Look for us on our Impact page and Facebook, or on our YouTube channel there. If you have a question, we'll be delighted to answer that. Otherwise, we're gonna go through this series and probably end with some prayer, and then give you some opportunities as well, audience, to participate in a different way. Go ahead, Taylor.
I think some of the challenges for me personally, well, for one, I had COVID. Oh, wow. I'm so sorry you guys see my cat in the back, but I had COVID, and after that, I feel like it was just very traumatizing for me. I didn't even have symptoms, but it was just the thought that I had a disease that we don't really know anything about just really terrified me. And so, when we got back to school and everything, and we're supposed to be going out and evangelizing because we can't have our body meetings. It was scary for me because I didn't want to get it again. And so when I step onto Ball State's campus, I have a genuine, he just fell. I have a genuine fear that, I don't know. I just don't like being out. Like, I'm very nervous about that. I think that's probably the main concern that I have personally.
It's true. Students do get it. So we need to let everybody know that right now they're not telling about it as much, but it's spreading on college campuses like wildfire. Last week, University of Alabama or the week before, had 3,000 new cases of COVID on campus. So it's spreading around. That's one of them LSU people, Dree. So tell me, what are some of the challenges in light of all that's happening in 2020 to serve Black students today?
I think for me, it's the devastation of not having a new normal, but having so many things taken away from you. So at the start of the quarantine, it was in March, and this is the final semester of my college career. 4 years I've been working to have this moment of celebration that literally just got snatched from under me. Nothing to celebrate. All of my family is in Ohio, so this would have been their first time coming to Louisiana to see where I went to school, who I got connected to, and all of it was just gone. And then to say, okay, I want to serve Black students on college campuses, but now I can't meet them. I can't see their faces. I can't connect with them. It was very devastating for me, and having the opportunity to talk with students, the devastation for them. A lot of freshmen were seniors last year, so their proms got canceled, their graduations got canceled. So they're already coming in with so much loss and disappointment. And then on top of that, you have all this social injustice. So it's like I have all of these burdens, I have all these disappointments and have absolutely nowhere to put them. So what am I supposed to do with that? And for me, that's where I find my core motivation to keep going, to continue to talk, to continue to be that resource for them. Because I do understand what that feels like. I do understand where you feel like you've reached a pivotal point of celebration, but nobody's there to celebrate you. So for me, it's just being able to say it's okay, like there's still hope in the midst of everything.
Wow, that's heavy news. Yeah, you lost your prom, you lost your graduation, and then now you go to a ghost town of a campus to attend your next stage of your education. And then you see this death all around you. Yeah, it's hard stuff. What about you, Octavia?
Can you ask the question for me one more time? I got wrapped up in it.
Okay, so I want you to think about doing ministry right now in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic and all the other things that we're facing right now. What are some of the challenges that you feel right now currently at Ball State?
Some of the hardest challenges that I think about and for our students is that we lead from a place of wanting to train and equip. So we're intentional to think about the needs of our students to help them integrate their faith in all these areas. And having to pause that and care first, and be intentional to get to their heart of where they're at above finishing a book or finishing our 4-week foundations, but to pause and really give them a moment to say, how are you doing? Because a lot of our students don't do that. They don't pause. They don't think about how these current things are actually affecting them. A lot of them try to keep going and they want to be strong and they're like, I got to get this work done. But kind of challenging them a bit to kind of take a breath and acknowledge how that trauma is affecting their bodies and their minds, and how it is actually important for them to bring these things to the Lord, to come broken, to come weary, to come questioning and asking God, what do I do with this? And I say that's hard because that's the place I'm in. I'm in it with them. And so I sit before them and they ask me and I'm like, I don't know. But here, I know God. And so we can go look at this and find hope and encouragement together. And so it's been hard I don't want to push them to the point where they break and they can't go to class. But I don't want them to live right now and neglect the need to care well for themselves and their hearts and their minds, because the Lord cares about them and he cares about how they're experiencing the world and how that's actually affecting them. And so being intentional to make room for that in a way that allows them to live, because I need them to live. I want them to function and to flourish, but I don't want them to have a facade and then they go home and they're isolated and they're lonely. And so trying to help them walk through some of these things are really difficult, because I'm walking through it and I don't know. And I only know just a little bit more than them. And so that's been really difficult, not just this year, but this whole year from spring until now. That's been the hardest part.
Yeah, it seems like it never ending. And, it's like a broken record that doesn't stop. Curtis, you got a story for us too? Or at least an idea of how do you cope in the midst of all of this that we're dealing with?
Yeah, it's, as everybody has said, it's been rough. I think back in March, we were actually getting ready for an outreach in March. We were all going to Atlanta for spring break, and how that was canceled. And from that time forward, with COVID and its impact on students, but then with what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, what happened with George Floyd, what happened with Breonna Taylor, and the names and the list goes on and on. And for us, one of the biggest ways, one of the most helpful ways I've seen us help students to be able to navigate these things well is to have times for community, and where we can be able to talk about how do we have hope even in the midst of the pain. And one of the things coming back, particularly my heart grieves for freshmen and sophomores, is because they're coming into this year, particularly freshmen, they've never experienced college, and they're coming into a space that's already difficult with transitions. They're already coming potentially out of hard home situations with people who are being impacted by COVID, dealing with what they're seeing on social media and the racial injustice, and they get to campus and we don't have a way to reach them. And that's what makes my heart grieve. Someone was sharing the other day on one of our calls about just students who are struggling, and it's like, and these are students that potentially we could have been able to reach to share, but in this space it's not the same, and they're not able to experience community the same way. And the scripture that keeps coming back is, we do weep, we weep, we weep, we lament, we weep, but Father, we weep not as those who have no hope. And so Father, show us how to minister that hope, how to have it for ourselves and how to share it with others. What does the hope of Christ look like in these moments? And so, yeah, that's the conversation we're having.
Yeah, I'm convinced, what people fail to realize, part of the problem is that we're preparing students to engage these kind of issues for the rest of their lives. And to be on the battlefront to engage it. As I listened to our earlier story of Charity Haygood, Charity Haygood is struggling to provide computers and Wi-Fi in homes all throughout Newark, New Jersey, and those students that attend her schools. Her husband, Ryan Haygood, is right now, he's the president of the Institute for Social Justice in the state of New Jersey. And he's advocating not only for people to register to vote, but to fight against voter suppression. We're talking about places where our students, our former staff, our alumni are dealing with real life issues in the midst of the havoc that we're having right now. Our aspirations, as somebody said, how is the Impact Movement responding to the 21st century civil rights movement in America? Many of our students have participated in demonstrations. They're walking. Some of our staff have participated in demonstrations. Wrong is wrong. I don't care where it happens, when it happens. We want to show up and say we want to declare this. And so what we're hoping is to build well-rounded people who will confront evil and carry people through it, and proclaim not only the truth of Jesus, but be people who demonstrate this fact, this way of life in a subversive way in the society we live in. I really feel like Black students are at risk. I know a lot of students are at risk, but I think Black students are at risk a lot because they have every right to answer questions about, does this Jesus care about me in light of 40% of the people dying of COVID are Black? Does this Jesus care about me because Breonna Taylor is my age? Does this Jesus care about me because George Ahmaud Arbery looks like my cousin? Does this Jesus care for me because today we don't have any food and we're about to be on the street? And as our hope, as at Northwestern University, I just found out, is interesting. They did not let the freshmen and sophomores come to school, only the juniors and seniors. So that's another loss, Dree. So you missed prom, you missed graduation, you got accepted into school you want, and they said, fine, you can attend classes from your bedroom at your house because we don't want you on campus, Taylor, because we don't want you to get COVID. And if you get COVID, we may be at risk. So you got freshmen admitted to schools all across the country. And yet they're commuting from their bedroom to their bathroom to their kitchen, back to their bedroom for class. But we want to reach them. We want to pray for them. We want to serve them. Class. All right. And then they told them they couldn't come Friday before classes were supposed to start on the following Monday. Kayla Jones is telling me that because she is an alumni of Northwestern University. So these are challenging times that we want for students. Now I'm going to do something I've never done before. And my board member said you should do it more often than what I've done before. But we're about to close out, and I want to pray for these people because these people are not only in school like Taylor, but Dree and Octavia and Curtis, their full-time job is to try to be in reach without touching, respecting social distance, students. So I want to pray for them. But after this is over, before you see the credits, you're going to see a QR code, and QR means quick response. I want to thank you because I didn't know what that meant. Basically, I could barely say QR code, but I want you to look there. And then you'll see also there's a place where you can give, text to give. So if you call, let me put my glasses on because I can see them now, 678-384-3221. We welcome a gift to the Impact Movement. So you can scan the QR code or you can call us for a text to give. But I want to thank these folks because I want you to know I work with some very gifted, talented, devoted people. And this is just an example of the folk that we have. We got Kayla and Tracy in the background. We got Rebecca and Chris Huddleston and Alton Van and Joshua Igwe and Kayla Rogers and Denise Ross and Bria and Brianne. The names go on, and the campuses are over 60. And some of them are paid staff, some are volunteers, like brand new Arizona State. And I think we're at Cal Riverside, and we're trying to do something in Portland, but we're over at Kent State where Darnell Wilson is. And so I want to thank God for all of the staff. I want to thank God for all of our alumni. I want to thank these beautiful people, Curtis, Octavia, Taylor, and Dree, spending the time with us tonight. So if you don't mind, people, I'm going to do something different before we close out. I'm going to pray for them. And I want to pray God's shalom and blessings on them and protection that they don't get COVID or don't get COVID again, and that we can make it through Thanksgiving, because most of these campuses, once the students go home at Thanksgiving, they stay home. And if you didn't know that, just to let y'all know, they've canceled spring break for many of our institutions because they want them to get their education and go back home. So there's a lot of losses. One loss that Dree didn't say was Taylor Pierre, who was the oldest of her three siblings. And while she was in the last semester of her school at LSU, her dad got COVID. He's a pastor. I think he was also a barber too. He was in the hospital for 37 days. And on the 37th day, he transitioned to be with the Lord. And a week later, Taylor Pierre graduated from college. See, these are some of the losses that our students are going to. And these are the kind of places that we feel like we need to be present in. So let me pray. Jesus, I thank you I thank you for students today, every single one of them, the ones that know you, the ones that will know you, and the ones struggling to know you. I pray that the impact movement, wherever we are, whether it's in Texas or Louisiana, whether it's in North Carolina State, whether it's in Virginia or Pennsylvania, whether it's in Illinois State or Northwestern or in any of the schools we're at in Wisconsin, give us an opportunity, Lord Jesus, please, to be present with them, to love them, to care for them, and to be with them. I pray too for the staff that you also, in the midst of this loss, renew their strength, give them energy, Lord Jesus, to be present. I pray right now with other people's lives and in their own lives. Give them rest too, I ask. In your name, amen. And before you hit the pause button, I forgot to give one other big announcement. I want you to go on the Impact social media page, because Impact Wisconsin, Keisha Wilkins' staff there, this coming Wednesday, we had a special event, and she's going to be hosting Truth's Table, and she's inviting everybody to go on over there and check out this coming Wednesday. Forgive me for looking at the time, but go to our social media page, Facebook, Instagram, all over, and you can come in and join in to see Truth's Table as she hosts them in Wisconsin. So we're going to say good night. We'll see you September 26th. Please come. That's when we move from playing checkers to chess, and we're going to talk about institutional building. Got a lot of people about entrepreneurship and all these other things. October 26th, please come up and join us. Thank you very much. Good night. See you later.